Well, it's July, which means the new financial year is here. Many people will have gotten their tax returns and are beginning to put a bit of extra cash away, hopefully, back into their savings if you can do that. But have you ever thought ahead about investing your tax money or a bit of cash you might have sitting in a bank account? Maybe buying a property and leasing it out. Well, with property prices jumping on the coast and being more than half the cost in Toowoomba, and even less the further west you go, that's exactly what some people are doing. Colin Lee is a buyer's agent. He's based in Brisbane. He helps buyers all over Queensland and indeed Australia to purchase a property, whether it's to live in or to invest. He's speaking with the ABC's David Isla, giving us his best tips about buying, investing, and where the best places are to get into the 2023 financial year.
What I have seen is a real flight to places that are in the regions, mainly because of its affordability. So if you look at some stats on some of the properties that are available, and I'm just going to pick Warwick as one of the suburbs that I'm comparing it with, so to say. And it's quite simple. If you look at properties sold in Warwick in the last couple of months, you'll see that most of the properties that are sold are in around the vicinity of about 200 to about 300,000, which is still a very affordable price range for most investors, let alone owner occupiers.
Mm-hmm.
There was one property that was sold, which is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 3-car garage house on about a 3,000 square meter block, which is quite big.
Yeah.
And that was sold for 685,000. There are not many 3-bedrooms that are being sold at the moment in Warwick. And as we know, the owner occupiers prefer something with space. In fact, space and outdoor space and study and home office is one of the largest key search words in real estate in the last couple of years during COVID. So you can be rest assured that the 3 bedrooms, and if you can get a 4-bedroom in around the Southern Downs, would be predominantly owner occupiers that are keen to buy those properties, particularly if it's on a bigger plot of land as well.
So with that trend though, so you're talking about
Yes.
essentially people from, as we say, Brisbane, Gold Coast, possibly further afield, but actually buying these to physically move, a complete tree change from the metropolitan areas to Warwick, essentially.
Yeah, certainly because of the flight to regions and affordability as well. I mean, these days, I speak to clients. I'm a property buyer and a property advisor. I speak to clients every day, and I'm hearing more and more companies these days being quite open to their staff and their teams working from home, or at least for a couple of days a week, 3 days a week.
Mm.
So they'd prefer to live a little bit further out and have the space, particularly if they've got a family. So I've got a client at the moment, and he's got 2 kids, and he's saying, "Colin, I need space," So when you go out to Southern Downs, you can get, a property on about 1,000 square meters for less than $300,000.
Yeah.
So it's very affordable, and it's certainly a very attractive region for a lot of people from Brisbane and Gold Coast, just because you get more land for the same amount of money.
And you're not traveling. I mean, it's still within driving distance. Some would say, depending on your experience of commuting, even commuting distance, particularly if it was only a couple of hours. And yet, if you were only having to do it 2 days a week, that would seem very attractive. What about those properties in that area that aren't necessarily on the larger than average blocks? They are just that standard block, similar to what you mentioned, perhaps. So I think first up, are they still attractive to some buyers as well?
They are. So again, David, it's quite simple to see, because if you look at some of the stats at the moment and I can only use a suburb at a time, but if you look at Warwick at the moment, if you just go rental properties in Warwick, you'll see there are only 4 properties for rent. It's not a lot. And all 4 of them are 2-bedroom units, by the way. And they range between $240 to about $400 a week. So when you think about that, that is very, very, very low in terms of the number of properties that are available for rent at the moment.
Yeah.
And if you dig a little bit deeper, you can see that the suburb of Warwick is sitting on about 0.07. I'm just looking at it right now in terms of the vacancy rates.
Wow.
That is incredibly low. I mean, Queensland as a whole is well and truly below 1%, but 0.07 vacancy rate.
Yeah.
I've not seen that for a long, long time. And I don't think I've ever seen such a low number of vacancy rates. So, but then at the same time, David, if you look at the number of renters versus owner-occupiers in Warwick or Southern Downs as in general, you're looking at Warwick sitting on about 40% of the population in there are renters. So there's still a large group of owner-occupiers that are living in Southern Downs at the moment.
Absolutely. So does that, if you dig below those statistics, does that suggest that there's also active interest from those perhaps in the larger cities who have some money to spend to target Warwick and the Southern Downs as investment potential, as well as those who want to actually move there and live there?
Oh, 100%. Again, there's a whole philosophy, and this is what I always share with my clients: land appreciates, building depreciates. So if you've got the same amount of money and you could buy a property sitting on 400 or 500 square meters versus buying a property that's sitting on about 2,000 or 3,000 square meters, I know what people are hoping to do. At the same time, because Warwick and because Southern Downs has got such a low vacancy rate, you're looking at rental returns sitting in around the 7 to 8%. Your rental yield. You're talking about the average in Southern Queensland sitting at about 4 to 5%.
Wow, so that's very attractive.
So when you buy a property in Warwick, it pretty much pays itself off. In fact, you get a positive cash flow property in the minute you buy into a property in Warwick. Yeah. So it's become quite. It's been very attractive for a lot of investors to go out there, particularly when you see, only 4 properties available at the moment and such low vacancy rates.
Yeah,
so
it is
incredibly desirable local government area, that's for sure.
We're just talking about Warwick and the Southern Downs. Would it be a similar situation, say, we're in Toowoomba and I guess towns north of Toowoomba and even a little bit further west? Is there a reason to think that this would be the same situation in comparable sized towns elsewhere across southern Queensland?
I would dare say so. I mean, Southern Downs as a whole, if you're looking at the vacancy rates, it's sitting at 0.19%.
Yep.
So the whole of Southern Downs, in terms of the rental stock that's available at this point in time, you're looking at 35 properties. In a population of 35,000 across the whole of Southern Downs, you're looking at only 35 properties being available at the moment. So that's not a lot, if you know what I mean.
True, yes.
But if you want to look at Toowoomba, then it's looking at similar statistics. But I can't tell you 100% what Toowoomba's looking like at the moment. But I imagine it to be very low in terms of vacancy as well.
Absolutely, and comparatively to the population, yeah, certainly, and that that rental situation is dire for those looking for places to rent pretty much across the board. So I guess for the same reasons, although proportionally more expensive, Toowoomba would be just as attractive to perhaps a slightly different echelon of buyer as well.
I can say though that Toowoomba, for example, as a town. With a population of 171,000, is sitting number 8 in terms of the ranking of the most the highest population growth in Queensland. And that follows Brisbane, Gold Coast, Moreton Bay, Logan, Sunshine Coast, Ipswich, Townsville, and then you've got Toowoomba. So Toowoomba is very high up there. It's certainly attracting a lot of investors out into Toowoomba at the moment as we speak.
Absolutely, definitely. Tell me, how long, that extraordinary situation with the figures that we just talked about in Warwick and the Southern Downs, how long do you think a situation can last like that feasibly before, either the trend or the desire to invest or move out there wears off, or the property prices start to rise and make it less attractive?
That is a really, really good question. I don't know if that's going to happen within the next 5 years to 10 years. I'm quite optimistic like this. And I think it's driven by 2 major, factors. Firstly, the cost of construction, cost of trades. As we all know, for example, the cost of steel has gone up by 30%. The cost of timber has gone up by 40%. So builders are backing out in terms of wanting to build new properties. And they don't see it as a profitable venture. So you're getting more and more builders as well. Quite a number of builders have gone out of business as well, because they've signed fixed price contracts and they're not able to fulfill those contracts. So builders are a little bit scared in wanting to buy land and build at the moment. which causes a big problem. I mean, I'm not just talking about Southern Downs, I'm talking about, the large part of Queensland. Because if you look at the number of people moving into Queensland every day, it's quite a substantial amount. You're looking at about 1,000 people coming into Queensland every week, David.
That's extraordinary.
So that's 50,000 people that will be coming into
Yeah.
Queensland this year from interstate. Where are we going to house them? We're not building fast enough.
No,
so it's going to be around for quite a while, unless things significantly changes. We still need to house people, and that's the problem. When you have more demand than supply, prices are going to stay, and it's going to only go up.
Interesting stats there from Colin Lee. Colin Lee is a buyer's agent based in Brisbane who helps buyers all over Queensland and indeed Australia to purchase property in different places. He's speaking with the ABC's David Iliff, and interesting to note that he said that the Southern Downs was shaping up to be a real hotspot for both investors and tree changers from the coast and interstate. As is Toowoomba and probably right across the region. And interesting that they're looking for a bit more land. So not the super small blocks, and some of them up the coast and down the coast are super small these days, but looking for like 1,000 square metres. They're looking for a bit of room to move, looking for a home office, which is very common post or through the pandemic, working from home. So some interesting stats there to take away from Colin Lee, that buyer's agent. Thanks to David Iliff for that one.